I'm sure several of you are already aware of how Sony is going to stop making physical disc copies of their PlayStation video games in January 2028 to be digital only. Well, I, Zach Wolf, am already experiencing something similar. Sometime this year, Sound Ideas, the world's leading producer of royalty-free stock sound effects and music, suddenly discontinued releasing their sound libraries on compact disc, now offering them as digital download format only, or hard drive for bigger ones. Unlike video games, though, this I could kind of see coming. They released their sound effect libraries on compact disc until the mid-2010s, but usually with these sound libraries, each disc would hold 99 tracks, and in many cases each track would have several index tracks, like with Redbook Audio, but such support is rare on modern hardware. So when you play a track, you'd hear multiple sound effects with a somewhat lengthy pause in between. Given these CDs can hold up to 80 minutes of audio, you can have hundreds of sound effects on one disc. This allows, for example, Sound Ideas' Hanna-Barbera sound effects library, released in 1993, and one of my favorites to use, to have over 2,200 sound effects on 4 discs. And when you also get the separate Lost Treasure CD released in 1996, you get 351 extra sound effects, bringing the total up to nearly 2,600 sound effects. Real impressive stuff. Yet the Warner Brothers sound effects library, released in 1992, before the Hanna-Barbera one, has only 1,490 sound effects across 5 CDs. Though to be fair, this could be from before Sound Ideas began to really improve their index tracking on compact disc a year later. Anyways, in 2014, after Todd A.O. Sound Deluxe filed for bankruptcy and shut down rival sound effects company the Hollywood Edge, Sound Ideas acquired their assets in a liquidation sale and began distributing their libraries, but only as digital files. But thanks to eBay, I was able to buy a physical copy of their Cartoon Tracks sound effects library, released in 1992 using similar CD indexing technology and containing 1,805 sounds, including many classic Disney cartoon sound effects. This is another one of my favorite sound libraries to use alongside the Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers ones, as these 3 libraries, in addition to their respective cartoons, along with shows from other studios, a number of PC games I played as a cub back in the 90s used them a lot. Especially the humongous entertainment titles, the living books, the Disney animated storybooks, even some of the more mature cartoony PC games like Worms 2 and The Neverhood. But regarding the end of Sound Ideas' physical disc releases, another sign I could see this eventually coming was around the mid-2010s, when their 20th Century Fox sound effects library became digital only, after previously being released in 1995 on 10 CDs. This is a particularly fun library of classic motion picture sound effects. It especially shines with its collection of guns and ricochets. I do know regarding some of the bigger sound effect bundles, you can order them on an external hard drive, but even then it's probably safer to copy them onto a secondary external hard drive that's even bigger, because hard drives don't last forever. With that said, I tend to move my digital media work hard drives to newer and bigger ones every certain amount of years. Just last year, I invested in an 8TB SanDisk G Drive Project external Thunderbolt 3 hard drive for my audio and video work. It's only a little slower than an SSD because it uses a Thunderbolt connection and it's a 7200 RPM hard drive, which is the more ideal spinning hard drive speed for audio-visual work. But for when I'm on the go, I do have this 4TB Samsung T7 Shield external SSD that connects via USB-C. Of course, with the digital versions of those sound libraries, a key advantage compared to the CDs or even the CD rips is that each individual effect is already isolated and ready to be dropped into an audio or video editing timeline or whatever. With my Rips of the Library sound CDs, I manually isolate the sounds from each track and export them to my main sound effects folder in my operating system user folder. Even if there's a sound from those cartoon tracks, Hanna-Barbera, or Warner Brothers libraries I haven't used before, I'll make an isolated copy of the sound for that folder so I can use it again if need be. It's also why some of Sound Ideas' later, bigger sound effects CD collections in the 2000s and early 2010s would also include a DVD-ROM disc with the sound effects similarly isolated as digital audio files, ready to be loaded on a computer hard drive or whatever, since DVDs hold more storage than CDs. Also regarding sound effects on physical media, I do also have these. The Network Sound Effects Library, produced by Network Music and Universal Music, distributed by Sound Ideas. My high school used this library, as did my college's TV studio. The library had 120 CDs total by 2001, set up with each sound effect getting its own track. Unfortunately, it's out of print, so I'm glad I got these when I did. The Weather Disc 85 here even includes so many classic wind and thunder sound effects, including numerous Castle Thunder variations, albeit a lower quality than the ones on the Hanna-Barbera or 20th Century Fox libraries or whatever. Another noteworthy library I have on CD is the sound effects of Rocky and Bullwinkle and Friends, also from Sound Ideas. This one is a pretty diverse collection of J. Ward sound effects. In addition to being from the J. Ward Productions cartoons, I've often heard them elsewhere, such as in cartoons from Format Films, Total Television, the Patty Frilling Enterprises, and Bill Melendez Productions. Even SpongeBob SquarePants uses the oil spurt sounds from this library for Squidward walking, which I carried over to my 3D Movie Maker productions he appears in. But it's unfortunately not as popular as the cartoon tracks Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers libraries, but they are still fun sounds to use if you appreciate the source material they came from. I also bought the Turner Entertainment Company Sound Effects Library on CD 11 years ago. 3 discs containing several sound effects from older MGM and United Artists films. It also boasts a collection of cartoon sound effects from the Tom and Jerry shorts, but in actuality, only a few of them come from the later Chuck Jones Tom and Jerry's. The rest of them are largely the same as Hanna-Barbera's, but to be fair, it does have some HB sounds that are not on the Sound Ideas Hanna-Barbera library, so that was a nice surprise. Also on CD, I have the older 2-disc Hanna-Barbera Library of Sounds CD set released in 1986. A compact disc reissue of a 7 LP record set from 1973 with 231 sound effects. This really pales in comparison to Sound Ideas' Hanna-Barbera Sound Effects Library released 20 years later. And that's without the additional Lost Treasure CD. But it does have many sounds not on the Sound Ideas Hanna-Barbera CDs. But they did require some cleanup and noise removal in Audacity before I could incorporate them into my own library folder, so they'd sound better. Likewise, if when I digitize any sound effects from vinyl LP records. Yep, you heard me right. Like the very rare Hanna-Barbera Records Drop-Ins Volume 1 from 1965. Only 1,000 of these were pressed and distributed to radio stations. I got my copy here for $50 in pretty good condition, and upon getting it in the mail, the first thing I did was hook up my USB record player, put this on the platter, and digitize the LP into Audacity so I could clean it up, isolate the individual sound effects tracks in my library, including some sounds not on the Sound Ideas Hanna-Barbera CDs or even that Hanna-Barbera Library of Sounds, and also upload both sides of this record online, like the generous wolf I am. Similarly, I also bought some LP records from here. The Major Records Sound Effects Library from Thomas J. Valentino. Looking for some familiar sound effects I may have heard on Sesame Street, the Golden Book videos, and the Patty Frillings output. And I did find quite a few of them here. Yes, and as you may have just guessed, that's what my surname was based on. Sam Valentino, private tune detective. That's me. Yep, Sam. I also have on vinyl Disney's famous Chilling Thrilling Sounds in a Haunted House LP album from 1964. This is the modern reissue of the Haunted House, the original, but on a much higher quality vinyl, meaning better sound reproduction. Similarly, I also have the somewhat less impressive 1979 New Chilling Thrilling Sounds in a Haunted House. This record is not a mere reissue of the 1964 album, but is all new with some originally created spooky stereo sound effects, as well as several old Elektra Records and Major Records sound effects, along with a few familiar Disney and Hanna-Barbera sounds. Even more unusual from Disney Records is 1973's The Sounds of Christmas LP album. The first side of the record tells a story with sound effects like a well-produced radio drama about a family on Christmas Eve. And the second side is a bunch of sound effects and categories that loosely relate to the story. Toys, sleigh bells, and church bells, people laughing at Christmas parties, the appropriate Foley like wrapping or unwrapping presents or accidentally breaking ornaments, dogs and cats like the ones in the story. But for some reason, there's also transportation sounds like trains and planes that aren't just toys. And the weather sounds also include a bit of rain and thunder alongside the appropriate wintry wind sound effects. Unusual, but very handy to have. And this and the 1964 Chilling Thrilling Sounds and Haunted House records will both perfectly complement the 1992 Hollywood Edge Cartoon Tracks library in having a diverse collection of classic Disney sounds. Also, another thing that kind of made sound effect collections of the compact disc a dying breed are the online sites, where you can search for, sample, and purchase individual sound effects. Sound Ideas has sounddogs.com for this, along with their own source audio page, and I have indeed purchased some useful sounds from them, including from their massive Sound Deluxe collection released to start this decade. Digital only, of course, along with a hard drive version being available. Of course, these are all royalty-free collections, which is why they can be pricey, though Sound Ideas does often have half-off sales, at least a couple a year, as you pay once for buying the sound effects, and then you can use them any way you like in your productions. And it's handy if you make YouTube videos for profit like I do with these videos, like this. So yeah, it's the end of another era for physical media. In this case, buying sound effect collections on CDs. And it's really too bad. The first disc in the Sound Ideas Hanna-Barbera sound effects library. It includes some fun linear notes in its jewel case about how they often created and edited sound at Hanna-Barbera. From Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera and editors Pat Foley and Greg Watson. Yeah, Joe Barbera even recalls an occasion where Gary Coleman came into the studio that wasn't related to when they made the Gary Coleman show. Very informative stuff if you're a classic cartoon fan like me. But while vinyl records are currently the most popular physical music or sound format, nowadays, it's just not practical to use records for post-production sound editing, compared to the olden days where you could wire them to tape recorders or 35mm film sound recorders or whatever. But I guess that covers everything for this vlog, so keep watching this channel for whatever me and my other two friends do here next.